Hello, welcome to the English session of the e-learning materials production brought to you by Efanos PLC. My name is Tesfaye Waldematin and we will now focus on grade 11, unit 3, hospitals and health. Like every other unit in this production, you will have 5 sections here in this unit. The first 3 sections will focus on reading and listening skills. Fourth, grammar. Fifth, writing. The first section, in the first section, you will either read and do the comprehension tasks or listen and do the comprehension tasks. So you'll have the audio and the text. You choose based on your needs and gaps. The second will entirely focus on reading. So you read and do the comprehension tasks. The third, you listen and do the comprehension tasks. In all these 3 sections, you will have a pre-reading or listening speaking tasks and a post-reading or listening speaking tasks, in which you will interpret, personalize the topic at the end and familiarize yourselves with the topic by talking about the topics and different discussion points in the beginnings. And in the fourth section, you will have that grammar focus. There are specific grammar items that are selected based on your course books, based on the Ministry of Education's syllabus. And you will focus on those grammar items. You will have grammar explanations, examples, and some pronunciation focus and exercises to help you practice these items and personalize these items as well when you get to move to the next part, which is writing in the 5th section, where you will be given contexts, text, model, text, and you will be doing different tasks that lead you to produce something at the end, write something at the end using the grammar items and the things covered in this unit, other things covered in this unit. Right. This so let's get to the next slide and see the unit objectives, and after that we will do the tasks in each section together. Okay, good. There you go. Our learning outcomes for this unit are: by the end of Unit 3, you will be better able to give information about illness and different kinds of treatment. We'll specifically be able to become familiar with some medical terms, talk about topics related to medicine, read for general and specific information in the context of medicine, listen for specific and general information in the context of medicine, use third conditional sentences to talk about things that did not happen, make sentences containing defining relative clauses and non-defining relative clause. And at the end, write a descriptive essay with introductory, body, and concluding paragraphs. So these are the goals of this unit. And by the end of this session, you will evaluate yourselves against these checklists. So, section 1, reading or listening. Your choice. Choose whether to listen or read and do the tasks. The first part of this section, like every other section, is brainstorming and vocabulary, which is brainstorming in this case is a bit of speaking just to begin with, and you have the actual listening or reading comprehension tasks, and then they are followed by interpretation and personalization task, which is speaking, in other words, in this context. So the pre-task, the brainstorming to talk about what your impression is about medicine. So what's your impression about medicine? You may pause here and maybe talk about this question. You may use your phone to record yourself. You may use your mirror to look at yourself talking. You may talk to your family members, friends about this topic. You can also answer this question, talk about this question. Do a lot of people want to study medicine? Do a lot of people in your country want to study medicine in Ethiopia? Why do they choose medicine? Why do you think they choose medicine? Those who choose medicine, why do you think they choose medicine? You may pause and talk here. What medicine words do you know? What do they mean? You may write down the list of medical terms you know before you get exposed to several medical terms in the next slide. And you may compare those terms with the ones that are listed here, but at the same time, I'd like you now to match the words with their meanings. Once you have completed doing so, you can move on to the next part and see the answer for this and compare them with yours. Okay. All right. Here are the answers for the vocabulary matching task. Let's first practice with the pronunciation of each word. I'd like you to repeat after me when I say the words. It's a good practice for you. This is how you learn pronunciation, how to pronounce the words. And if you don't know how to pronounce the words, then your listeners will not understand what you mean. So pronunciation is as important as the meanings of the words. Okay. Prevalence, hypertension, script, facets, dissemination, otolaryngology, peppering, cutting edge, novel, biomechanics, okay? Now, prevalence means the widespread presence of something. In this case, can be a disease in a particular area or a particular time. We have to stop the prevalence of HIV, you could say in a sentence. Hypertension is abnormally having that high blood pressure in the context of medicine. So she went to the hospital because she had hypertension, because she had abnormal high blood pressure. That's what it means. Script is about cutting down on things. It can be saving or being thrifty or economized. So her parents scrimped and saved her to give her a good education. So it means they cut down on their expenses. so that they give their children or child, in this case, a good education. Facets, it means features or sides, any of the definable aspects that make up a subject. Each facet of the problem, each part of the problem, each feature of the problem, that's what it means, requires careful attention. For dissemination, it means distribution. So social media highly assists in the dissemination of public information. Otolaryngology, the branch of medicine that deals with the anatomy, function, and diseases of ear, nose, and throat. So he is a specialist in, you can say, otolaryngology. Peppering is interrupting, being annoyed, or pressurizing, being annoying, or pressurizing. That's what it means. His father yelled at him because he kept peppering him continuously. Cutting edge, it means brand new. It can also mean most advanced stage in the development of something. The latest Samsung phone is cutting edge technology. Novel, it means quite original, new, or not resembling something formerly known or used. The handheld computers are novel devices, you can say. Biomechanics is the study of mechanical laws relating to the movement or structure of living organisms. And he's a lecturer of biomechanics, you can say. And here is the first while reading or listening task. And it's listening or reading for general information, in other words, gist. And you read the text quickly or listen to the recording only once to answer the following questions. First question is, what is the text or recording all about? Second question, who narrates or talks about each person? And the third, what do all doctors have in common? You answer these questions and by reading through or listening to the text in the next slides. So now we are in the first slide, and we have 3 slides for this reading and or listening text. So each time you may pause the video to read. If you are going to just listen, you would not need to look at the screen, but play the recording and listen to the next 3 slides and do the task to answer the questions and check your answers in the subsequent slide, in the 4th slide from here. So okay, there you go. You may pause here, but if you're going to listen to the recording and do the task, there you go, listen. Himali Yirga, medical doctor, PhD. I became a doctor because I wanted to make a difference in people's lives. Being a neurologist in Ethiopia is helping me accomplish that goal. Ife Elias, medical doctor. I grew up in Gambela in Ethiopia and was aware of the challenging healthcare situation there, along with the striking prevalence of hypertension in the community and in my own family. These factors motivated me to pursue research on hypertension.
My name is Aisha Agrima and I'm a medical doctor. 2 words: curiosity and compassion. As far back as I can remember, I knew I was going to be a doctor. It's shaped by experiences and hard to put into words. My parents were the first medical professionals in their families. mom a midwife, and dad a surgeon. They immigrated to the US from Ethiopia when I was very young, and dad spent most of the next decade repeating his residency training as a surgical specialist. We moved a lot during those years. I was a shy, thin, nerdy kind of kid, and science and math seemed to draw me in. On Sunday mornings, Dad would take me on rounds at the hospital. Throughout that time, they screamed and saved to get by supporting three kids, prioritization above their own personal need. They impressed upon me the virtue of hard work and commitment over personal gain and the privilege it was to help others. As a teenager, my dad's battle with the skin cancer was short lived. But it was as an undergraduate and medical student at Atlanta Medical School in Georgia that I was exposed to facets of the academic medical profession for the first time. The initial experience continues to energize me every day, and scientific discovery, translation, and the dissemination of what we develop into widespread clinical practice to reach people whose lives may be touched. Doing so with patients and families at the center of their decision making and teaching the next generation of students about the miracle of every part of the journey so that they too can share in the excitement of the medical profession and being a doctor. Never stop being curious, never stop showing compassion.
I'm Nuru Yassin, and I'm a medical doctor. I'm the fourth generation of doctors in my family. Going to medical school felt natural to me. My family members and mentors in my love for children sparked my interest in pediatrics and pediatric neurology. I think the bond between children with neurological disorders, their families, and the doctor makes it a very fulfilling field. Okay, now let's move on to the next slide. There you go, you have more to read here or listen to. I will play the recording. You may pause here if you're going to read instead. Hello, I'm Jonas Teferi and I'm a medical doctor. Well, I first became interested in medicine when I was a child. My youngest brother was born with a serious birth defect called occipital encephalocele. I vividly recall peppering my mother with questions about what it was and what it meant. She would speak with warmth and gratitude about what his pediatric specialists advocated for him. He and my family have adjusted time and time again as his special needs have evolved, and the ongoing effect of his condition on his life has informed my appreciation of how physicians can impact on patients and their families. The journey to becoming a physician has now taken me full circle. I have a special respect now for the patients to whom I sometimes provide different diagnoses, knowing the lifelong impact this can have on them and their families. Hi, I'm Solomon Gebrakiros and I'm a medical doctor. Well, I have been interested in a career related to women's health since college, and I began medical school here at University of Gondar with plans to become an obstetrician gynecologist. I decided to become a minimally invasive gynecologic surgeon, as I believe that as surgeons we have the responsibility to offer the safest and least invasive options to our patients with the goal to improve patients' outcomes with shortened recovery times. Hello, Selassie Mellis here, and I'm a medical doctor. Being a physician provides innumerable opportunities and the immense privilege to help improve the lives of patients of all ages. As an academic physician, I'm able to advance the field of medicine through scientific questioning and discovery. Hello, my name is Nugus Ibi and I am a medical doctor. My decision to become a doctor was driven largely by values instilled in me by my faith and my family. The idea of being a part of a profession focused on helping others regardless of circumstance, focused on facilitating people leading healthier and therefore happier lives. I can't imagine a more fulfilling job. Okay, now we go to the third slide, and this is the final part of the text. So you can again either listen or read and do the the task there. Okay. Now, if you're listening, there you go. Otherwise, you may pause.
My name is Soliana. I'm a medical doctor. I did not come from a family of doctors. My mom was an office manager and my father was an attorney. As early as elementary school, I developed a love for maths and science. I somehow knew very early on that medicine was a career. I wanted to help people. I chose a career in otolaryngology early in medical school and chose to focus on head and neck cancer surgery because I felt that who we are as a people, our voices, our looks, our sight, our hearing was threatened by cancer. And I aspired to preserve form and function by minimally invasive surgical approaches, cutting edge reconstruction, and novel therapies, which are chemotherapy, targeted therapy, and radiation that avoided the surgery that could cause significant dysfunction. Medicine for me has always been a calling as well as a privilege. My name is Alef Fissoum and I'm a medical doctor. Being a doctor was for me the ultimate opportunity to help others. As a surgeon, I can have an immediate positive impact on the care of patients with cancer. Working towards improved cancer treatments with my husband, Professor Loni Shia, provides ongoing hope and optimism that the disease we're studying may one day be cured. My name is Abigail Saifu and I'm a medical doctor. In my field of physical medicine and rehabilitation, we use the knowledge of biology, biomechanics, physics, and even psychology to help people achieve the highest quality of life, despite a variety of challenges. I've always found the working of human body fascinating and I knew I enjoy using my knowledge of it to help others. I haven't been disappointed and I find every patient a welcome challenge.
Okay, good. Now you may go back to the text to answer the following questions as well, but the answer for the previous task is here. So for number one, a number of doctors explaining why they chose to become medical professionals. That's what they were talking about. All of them. That's what makes it makes them common. I mean, this is the common thing in all texts, in all individual cases. The professionals themselves, they are the ones narrating the story, and they all deem to help others. These are the answers. Now you may rewind the video and watch or read, listen or read the text to the text and do these multiple choice questions 1 to 5. You may pause here and do the tasks and check your answers afterwards. Okay, the first one is B. second is C, third is B, fourth is B, and last one is B. So check, compare your answers. If you're not sure, you may go back, rewind the video, and check, compare your answers. Right, another reading or listening comprehension task is to answer the 5 questions here. So you may go back and listen or read and do this task as well. Okay, so assuming that you have done this by pausing this and maybe going backwards to find the answers from the text, I'm going to show you the answers. There you go, 1 to 5, the answers are there. Pause, share. Now we can move on to our last part of this section, which is the post-reading or listening interpretation or personalization task. You may do this looking at the mirror like the images shown, with your family, with your friends, using your phone or family phone, someone's phone, to record yourselves and check and look at yourselves, maybe self-evaluate later your speaking. So you discuss these questions 1 to 4. Have you ever thought of being a doctor? Why not? If you were to be a doctor, which area of specialism would you choose? Why? Do you know any doctor that people like in your hometown? Why do they like him or her? What do you think are qualities of good doctors? Talk about these topics, and once done, you can move on to the next slide. Moving on to section 2, the focus is reading. Like in the previous section, we will start with pre-tasks. These are mainly brainstorming, speaking, and vocabulary tasks. We will then focus on comprehension tasks. This is where you apply the reading strategies. So you'll read for specific and general information. In other words, you will do some scanning and skimming tasks. You'll then do some follow-up speaking task, which is to interpret and personalize the topic. All right, let's get started with this section. And the pre-task, there you go, talk about the following questions, it says. And the questions are: what are you most scared of? Injections, surgery, or other medical procedures? You may pause here and talk about it using your available tools or what is possible out there. You may then talk about this topic. What do you think makes any surgery difficult? Take time, you can talk, pause, talk. And next one, is there any interesting medical achievement you have heard of that amazed you the most? If yes, what is it? What was achieved and how? Okay. So if you've talked about these 3 questions, then you can move to the next slide. And the next slide is vocabulary. And scan through the text to find words that mean the following. So this is not just finding the definition kind of matching task like in the previous section. This is more about you finding the meanings from the given text to begin with. So you've got 9 words here, 9 phrases and words, and in paragraph 1, origin, the main is used in another word, in another way in the text, so you need to find it and write it there on your notebook, and then later you will compare your answer with the answer key after the next couple of slides. So that's the same for learner, trainee, and 1 up to 9. So you'll find them in the paragraphs mentioned. Para means paragraph. Okay. Okay. Let's get to the text then. This is the first slide of the reading text. We'll go to the second part in the next slide and read more. You may pause here, read, and then move on to the next slide. Just resume from where you stopped. Same is true here. Pause, do more reading, find the meanings of those words from 1 to 9, and write them on your notebooks. This is the last page of the reading text, so read again and find those synonyms somehow in the text. Okay, you may pause here and do it. Now we're moving on to our next slide. You can now see the answers for the vocabulary task, and let's first practice with their pronunciation, the pronunciation of the words, and alongside we'll look at their meanings and some examples. The first word there is pronounced as descent. It can't be confused with the word that starts with D and goes with I, C, E, N, and last word, that's letter T. So you may say this as decent. It's an adjective, sorry for my, terrible handwriting. So it is pronounced as decent, the stress at the beginning, and the rest in the second syllable, it's unstressed. Whereas when you say descent, here, the stress is on the second syllable, and the first syllable is unstressed, and it's a noun, not an adjective in this case. So, descent, after me, descent. Okay. The meaning is origin, in short. The origin or a background of a person in terms of family and nationality in particular. You may look at this example. The settlers were of Indian descent, or actually, the settlers were of Indian descent. The other one is the person is quite decent, you may say, for this one. He's got an Ethiopian descent. Okay, moving on is apprentice, and that's a noun, and learner, that's what it means, or trainee in short. And her son is an apprentice electrician, you might say, in a sentence context. So you may practice with me once together. Apprentice. And again, apprentice. Okay. Next one is interracial. And the meaning is multi-ethnic. Roses comes from an interracial background. Rose comes from an interracial background. So you may say this word with me, repeat after me. Interracial. It's an adjective. Again, interracial. Next word is susceptible, and it's an adjective, and it means at risk of. An example for this would be patients with liver disease may be susceptible to infection. Okay, you may say this after me. Susceptible. Susceptible. Okay. Next one is viable. It's an adjective. It means sustainable. The proposed investment was economically viable. Repeat after me. Viable. Viable. And next word is prominent, which means noticeable. And he is a prominent specialist in otolaryngology. And so you may repeat after me again. Prominent. Prominent. Okay. Now, next word is legion. And it means multitude, a vast number of people or things. And in the sentence, you can say, her fans are legion. Next word, before we move on to the next one, repeat after me. Legion. Again, legion. Next is ridiculed, which means laughed at, mocked, and his theory was ridiculed and dismissed. And repeat after me. Ridiculed. Ridiculed. The next word is casualty, and it means a wounded person. Several people were injured, but there were no casualties. Okay, now repeat after me. Last word. Casualty. Casualty. All right, now we can move on to the next part. And here we start with the first while reading task, which will be skimming, reading for general information, in other words. And the first and the task is to read the text quickly, again by going backwards in this video. Which paragraph talk about these topics? The topics Daniel from 1889 to 1894. In the 1970s, the people, Dr. Michael E. Debakai served as a heart surgeon. World War II contributions. So up to 8. So you basically go to the paragraphs and find these topics. I mean, as in you read quickly each paragraph and which of the 1 to 8 topics each paragraph covers. And if, for example, paragraph 1 generally talks about, say, World War II contributions, if you read and that you feel that it's the general information, then you would put that paragraph here. Okay, you may pause here, or you may go backwards, of course, and read the text and get forward it and look at the answers. Okay, then let's look at the answers together, and you may compare your answers now. So these are the paragraphs that cover these topics. Okay, moving on. Another while reading task, and this time it is reading for specific information task, scanning task in other words, and the task is to read the multiple choice questions below, then read the story by going backwards and reading the story, the text, choosing the correct option. So you may go backwards to read again and answer these specific questions by choosing the best options from the given A to C or B. Okay, you may pause. You may come back to the main rule. You may come back to the next part and see the answers. And the first answer is A, second is B, third is C, fourth is B, and last is C. Okay. Our last while reading task, scanning task in this case, is this one. It's basically according to the text or recording. Are these statements about Dr. Debakai true or false? Are the statements true or false, or is there not enough information? And if true, you just need to write T. If false, just write F on your notebook, and if there is not enough information, just write N to say yeah. Then locate your clues from the text and justify your answers. You should always try to do that. That's where you justify and internalize and justify your answers, and helps you internalize the context in which the answers are found. Okay, so 1 to 5 are the statements, and what are the answers? You may go back again and read and do the answers and check your answers with the answer key, which I will present now. Okay, answers. The first one false, false again, not enough information, false, and last one true. Okay, this is your post-reading task. This is where you interpret and personalize the topic. Discuss the following questions. Which achievements mentioned in the recording or text are you intrigued by? Are you interested by? Are you surprised by? Why? What more inventions and achievements do you wish to happen in the medical field? What role do you think the traditional medicines and medical practitioners play in saving lives and creating a healthier world? You may pause here, talk about it using your tools. It can be your mirror or family, friends, just talking to family and friends about this topic, these questions. Or you may just use your phone or someone's phone in your family to talk about these questions. Okay, and next section will be section 3, which is entirely about listening. There comes listening, section 3. We will, as usual, have a pre-task, brainstorming, and vocabulary. And while listening task, general and specific information comprehension. Post-task, post-listening tasks, which is to interpret and personalize the topic, so do some speaking at the end. So let's start with the pre-task, the pre-listening task. And this is the pre-task and brainstorming, and the task is to talk about the following questions. What are the most common questions doctor asks patients? Have you ever been treated or diagnosed by a doctor? How was the experience like? Are there certain kinds of food that make you feel sick? What are they? Do you know why? When do you think people should see a doctor? What is the right time? Why is it important to see a doctor when you feel not so well? Now you may pause the video here and talk about these questions using your tools like your mirror, phone, or family or friends. Okay, assuming that you have done that, let's move to the next slide, which is focused on vocabulary. And the vocabulary preparation task is just to look at these meanings first for each word. Here the pronunciation for the first one is irritate. Together, I mean, you can repeat after me. Irritate. Fatality. Astounding. Chronic. Hemorrhage. Inflammation. Okay. Their meanings are as described here. You can look at the meanings, pause, and use these keywords 1 to 6 to complete the sentences with the words from the above. I mean basically using these lists of words. You may pause here and do the task based on their meanings. Fill the gaps. And you may pause this video to do this. Now I'll show you the answers. First one, inflammation. Second, chronic. Third, hemorrhaging. Fatally. Astounding and irritate. And this is another while listening task, and this time you'll listen for specific information. You've got 8 questions here, all multiple choice questions. You listen to the dialogue by going back to the previous audio. You may rewind this video to listen to the dialogue again and choose the correct options from 1 to 8. You may go back and come back and check your answers. Okay, now let's go through the answers. The first one C, second C, third C, 4 C, fifth 5 D, 6 B, 7 B, 8 C. Now you may compare your answers, and if you're not sure about something, you may go back and check in the recording whether how and justify why the change, why the answer is different as well. Okay, and this is your last while listening task. Again, listening for specific information. The following statements 1 to 7 have some things that contradict with the dialogue or the conversation you've been listening to. Read carefully and correct the problems, and if you need to go back and listen to the recording once more, you can, but if you think you can remember and do this, then you can do it without listening. But it's good to check the recording after you do the answers, not after you listen this time. Do the answers from what you remember and then go back and listen to the audio again by going backwards in this video. Okay, now let's look at the answers, assuming that you have listened and done the task. Here are the answers 1 to 7. You may pause, compare. If you need to listen to it again to confirm, check, you can. And this is your last task for this section 3, and it is the post-listening task. This is where you interpret and personalize the topic by discussing these questions. The first being, how do you find the doctor and the patient in this recording? Would you be satisfied with Dr. Mesfin's explanation if you were the patient? What do you learn from the dialogue, the conversation? What questions might you ask if you get a chance to meet a good medical doctor, perhaps like Dr. Mesfin? So you may pause the video here and talk about these questions through the different ways suggested. We're now going to focus on grammar, and this is section 4. We will first look at sample text. Then we will go through some explanations with examples, and we will look at some pronunciation aspects, and at the end you will do several exercises to help you internalize the grammar usages, the usages of the grammar items selected. And the first grammar item we are going to look at is defining and non-defining relative clauses. And here you can see the sample text where you can try and identify examples of defining and non-defining relative clause. You may pause and do that, and we'll soon move on to the next task. Okay, let's move on to the next task. The next task for me, not for you, is to explain to you what these two grammar items mean. So defining and non-defining generally are used to introduce essential and unessential information about people, things, possessions, places, or a time. As you can see here in this table, you can see the purpose and the purpose of defining relative clause, defining and non-defining is generally, as you could see, if we're talking about people as a purpose, to define people, or as an essential or unessential information, to add essential or unessential information, we can use basically who and that. And for objects we use whom and that, and for possession we can use whose. And when we try to give more information, which can be essential or unessential about things, we can use which or that, or for objects we can use which or that again, the same as subjects, and we can use whose or of which for possessives. When it comes to place, time, or reason, we don't use them with subjects, so that's not the case here, but we can use for defining or non-defining clause with where, when, and why in place of objects, and we don't have anything here for possessives, as you can see. Okay, let's now look at them one by one. And relative clause, defining relative clause, let's start with it. So it gives essential information, that's what it means, to define or identify the person or thing we are talking about. So we can look at some examples here. A thief who has stolen over 100 handbags has finally been arrested. This is taken from the sample text in the beginning of this grammar section. So in this case, you could see that a thief, we don't know who this thief is unless there is this statement, which is a defining clause. So it's a defining clause. It defines the thief. Without these, who has stolen over 100 bags, if I simply say a thief has finally been arrested, which thief? We don't know. So it's very essential. This information here is very essential. That's what we're saying. But when it comes to non-defining clause, they give extra information that is not essential. So the meaning of the main clause is still clear without the non-defining clause, as opposed to defining clause in the example you've seen. So when we say the witness, who police have not named, was also a victim of slack. So anyway, here you're saying police have not named. So this is just extra information. If you're going to mention the name of the witness here, then you're trying to say this is the particular witness I'm talking about, and you don't need to use non-defining clause. And as you can see, in defining relative clause, we don't put comma. No comma, as you can see, because it's an essential information. Whereas here, who police have not named is not an essential information, so we can put comma to separate it from the essential information or the rest of the sentence. So the witness was also a victim of slack, the person in the text you've seen, read about in the beginning of this section. So that's what we're saying is their difference, basically. So see comma, no comma in defining, comma yes for non-defining. You cannot replace who with which, who or which with that when it comes to non-defining relative clause. So if that is only used in defining relative clause. So the witness, police have not identified, that's fine, but that police have not identified with a comma, it's not possible. It can only, that is only used in defining relative clause. So you can't replace who or which like you do in defining relative clause when you use it in the context of non-defining sentences. So that has no place. You cannot omit the relative pronoun. So for example, the witness, who police have not identified, also had her handbag stolen. So you cannot say the witness, police have not named. You cannot take out who in this case. So the relative pronouns are always should always be there when it comes to non-defining relative clause. Whereas in the case of defining relative clause, we may omit the relative pronoun if the subject is already there, and if a pronoun is there, so it's a repetition. So you may say the person, so you may say the person I met yesterday, he's the person I met yesterday. And instead of saying he's the person that I met yesterday. So that can be omitted in the case of defining relative clause. And in summary, what we're saying is defining adds extra information. Both defining and undefining do that. Both and only defining adds essential information. And only defining again can use that instead of who or which. Both cannot omit the subject relative pronoun. Only the object relative pronoun can be omitted in the case of defining clause. So and the non-defining relative clause can use commas, and the defining cannot, because it's an essential information. Right, if this is not very clear, you may use our different sites to and also use your coursebook to review before you move on to the tasks. So before moving on to the tasks, let's look at some pronunciation items. So in this case, we are going to look at some aspects related to non-defining relative clause. In spoken English, the speaker uses pauses slightly before and after the non-defining clause. For example, Mr. Slack, you pause because there is a comma as well, who's still in police custody, pause again, there is a comma, and you can continue after, lives at 28 Haversham Gardens. You may say it with me, repeat after me. Mr. Slack, who's still in police custody, lives at 28 Haversham Gardens. Mr. Slack, who's still in police custody, lives at 28 Haversham Gardens. That makes sense, yeah? You may repeat and practice. You can only improve this through practice. In defining clause, no pause is required until the end of the sentence. So you say, a thief who has stolen over 100 handbags has finally been arrested. No pause. So you can practice saying them all together, connecting the words, not as isolated individual sounds or words. They need to sound, then by doing that you sound natural, and you might not impede communication. Another pronunciation to look at is there are 7 ways of pronouncing the OUGH spelling depending on the word, and that's what makes English confusing. You just need to study these 7 ways of pronouncing it. So in the first case, it's ought, and an example is bought, brought, thought, ought. And in the second case, as you can see, uff sound, and rough, tough. In the third case, it's oh sound, and it is pronounced as although, though. And the next one is donut. And in this case, sound, thur, burr. And you may repeat after me by going backwards again. The next is oo sound, through, long oo sound, through. And you have off sound, cough. So these are basically, there is actually one more, and it is o sound, plow. So you may repeat after me once. Boat, rough, although, thorough, through, cough, plow. So these are the 7 pronunciations of 7 ways of pronouncing OUGH. So English is not phonetic, and the spelling could vary from word to word, and the spelling could not be used for pronunciation. In other words, that's what I mean. Okay, now let's look at the grammar tasks. And for these grammar items we have just looked at, this is the first task. Underline 6 relative clause in this article. Then decide if they are defining or non-defining relative clause. Write D. You may use this as a code. G for defining and ND for non-defining. You may pause, read and do this task and compare your answers with the answer key in a minute. Okay, I'm going to show you the answers. There you go. So these are the answers. Compare. Right. This is the second task. Fill the blank spaces with defining relative pronouns such as which, that, who, whose, where, when and why. 1 to 7. There are gaps where you can fill these pronouns. You may pause this video and do the task. Now I'll show you the answers. When, where, that, which or that, why, whose, and who. As you look at, for example, the first one, you can also say where for the first one. Maybe people take paracetamol when they have headache. Yeah, when is the answer, the only answer. Some doctors choose to serve where there aren't enough facilities. When is also possible. In this case it says where, the answer, but when can be possible. Casualties is the word for people or things that, it's more that are, so things that, or in the next case, what's the branch of medicine, which or that, and yeah. Now complete the sentences with who, which, whose, why, where, and when, or when, and the phrases in the box. You use them to answer them. So the first one, it's someone who, you can look at the pictures as well to help you. There are your prompts. It's someone, you may pause and do the tasks and check your answers in a minute. There you go, the answers. It's someone who examines patients. Yeah, doctors. It's something that, or you can omit it, we use to lock or unlock things, the keys. It's a place, we use where students read, it's a library. I know the thief, whose arms are crossed, the arms that belong to the thief. That's what you're saying. I don't understand. Actually, sorry. It's the one day in the year when you feel special. The day, the time, which is when. I don't understand why people drink too much. Okay, these are the answers. Next grammar task is to combine the sentences using defining relative clause. When the relative pronoun is an object, it can be omitted, remember that, except with whose and where. That's the girl, she spoke to me yesterday. How can you combine them and make a defining relative pronoun? You can use a defining relative pronoun to connect them. Pause, do it, and now I'll show you the answers. Okay, here are the answers. There are several options for number 2, 3, and 5, and it could be possible for others as well, that depending on the context, that it can be possible to use other answers, but most likely for 2, 3, and 5 as given. And combine the 3 sentences in this task 5 of grammar 1. You combine the 3 pieces of information into one sentence using non-defining relative clause. Burj Khalifa was completed in 2010, the tallest building in the world. Okay, you can do this for all of them. Pause, do it. Now I'll show you the answers. So Burj Khalifa is particular, it's already defined, so it doesn't need any more extra information. If added, it means it's unessential, but it's just to give extra information, but it doesn't means anything if you take this part out, which was completed in 2010, sorry. And 2, Coca-Cola, also called Coke, then it's Coca-Cola, which is also called Coke, is sold, and so that's again the key information. The commas are there, and the clause in the middle can be taken out. It's an essential information, and with it you're just giving extra information. And Barack Obama, who was born in Hawaii, and the key information, without who was born in Hawaii, Barack Obama is the 44th president of USA. No problem. The moon, which has water under its surface, might be a future home for humans. See, it's again non-defining. Last task of the first grammar item is to complete the sentences using either defining or non-defining relative clause, depending on the sentence. Everyone started to cheer up and clap when the city were pause and do it, and in a minute I'll play. I'll show you the answers. There you go. These are the answers. These are possible sample answers, so there are several answers possible. Even if you've seen the answers here, you can still do this task by giving your own answers, as long as you keep the structure, the correct structure. The content is open to several options. Good. Now we are moving on to our second grammar focus, and our second grammar focus is about things that did not happen, which is third conditional sentences. Listen and see the model, enjoy the model dialogue.
You missed a good concert last night. You really should have been there.
But I was.
If you had been there, why hadn't I seen you?
I was in the gallery. If you had looked up, you'd have seen me. I waved at you, but you didn't wave back.
If I hadn't waved back, it must have been because I couldn't see you. Why didn't you text me or something? If you had sent me a text, we would have gone for a drink or something.
I tried, but I didn't have any credit on my phone. And anyway, I had to go home early.
So you could see the highlighted sentences. If you had looked up, you would have seen me. If you had sent a text, we would have gone out for a drink or something. Sample sentences of talking about things that did not happen, third conditional sentences. The explanation for third conditional sentences, if plus past perfect, we use it to talk about situations that did not happen in the past. The situation described is often the opposite of what really happened. We use would, have plus participle to talk about the hypothetical past consequences of the imagined past situation. It is hypothetical. So if plus past perfect, would have plus past participle, if I had scored good grade, if I had scored good grades, I would have joined medicine. I did not score good grades, so I did not join medicine. That's what you're saying. So in terms of time, you have a particular time in the past where when you say, if I had scored a good grades here, at some point here, if you had scored a good grade here, you're saying you would have joined medicine afterwards. It can be here, another past situation, imagined situation which did not happen, which means you're saying you hadn't scored a good grade, so you did not join medicine. It has got no connection to the present whatsoever. Is this clear? I hope it is. And let's move on to the next part, which is pronunciation. Contractions of f and it sounds. When we say the combination of a modal verb have are contracted to make the sentence, to make the words. So we can say would have. Okay, repeat after me. Would have, could have, should have. So you could say, take a look at these examples. If I had tried harder, I could have passed my test. Could have passed. Could have passed. Could have passed my test. I could have passed my test. Repeat. And we can look at the next example as well. If I had woken up earlier, he would have been. Repeat. He would have been on time for class. And the next one is the past perfect with had, and which is have in the past. In other words, it's common to use the contraction in that case as well. So you can see at, you'd, should, hit, with, did. So you can see the contractions in these examples too. I'd never studied Spanish before. Repeat after me. I'd never studied Spanish before. Would not meet before the party. Repeat. Would not meet before the party. Okay. And this is your first grammar task for this second grammar focus. Choose the correct verb tense in each of the following sentences. You've got the choices given. Pause, do them, and now I'll show you the answers. Would have gone, hadn't lent, hadn't recommended, had asked, hadn't worn, could have fired. Okay, this is the second grammar task. Fill in the gaps using the verb in the brackets. Think very carefully about the meaning of the phrase before deciding whether to use the negative or positive forms. And when you fill the gaps, you should obviously think about the third conditional sentence formation, and we say that the if clause plus if plus past perfect, which is had plus verb 3, and the result clause is would have plus verb 3, or could have, or okay. Pause, do the answers. Okay, now you can check your answers. First one, hadn't eaten. I wouldn't have been angry. You were angry. If you hadn't eaten my chocolate, you ate my chocolate. That's what you're saying, but in a very hypothetical, imagining way. If he had known you were in hospital, he would have visited you. He would have visited you, and here he didn't know, so he didn't visit you. We wouldn't have come by taxi if we had found the right bus, so we came by taxi because we didn't find the right bus. We would have visited Awasa on our way if we had had time. We didn't have time, so we didn't visit Awasa. If you had seen my TV, you wouldn't have bought this brand. You didn't see my TV, so you bought this brand. And last one, if the doctor had told me about it, I would have been more careful. He didn't tell me, so I wasn't careful. Third task, complete the sentences about the imagined past situations. You may pause and do the answers and check your answers in a second. Okay, as in you take your time, but I'll play it in a second. Here you go. First one, the teacher wouldn't have been very angry with him. He was angry. If he had done his homework, he didn't do his homework. If I hadn't gone to bed late last night, I went to bed last night late last night. I wouldn't have been tired this morning. You are tired. And in this case, you were tired this morning. So you have been tired this morning. And if you had told me it was her birthday, I would have bought her a present. I didn't know it was her birthday, so I didn't buy. I wouldn't have passed the exam. I passed the exam. If you hadn't helped me, you helped me. I didn't see you. In this case, I wouldn't say hello. You said hello. If I had seen you, so I would have said hello. So I didn't, I didn't say hello, and I didn't see you. That's what you're saying. And next one is she could have joined or studied medicine if she had wanted to. She didn't join medicine, and she didn't want to join medicine. And next grammar task is to look at the sentences which are all about the past and change them to speculate about the past using the third conditional. You've got the prompts, the situation there. You just have to convert these into third conditional sentences. Pause, do the tasks, and now you can check your answers. You may pause and read each sentence and see if they make sense. And if they don't, you need to go back and review again before moving on to the next part. Section 5, writing focus. You will first look at a sample and some activities that will help you understand the particular writing focus with some notes in them, and there will be tasks that lead you to the final writing production task, and that again you will do the production writing task at the end. And our focus for this part is paragraph writing an essay, organizing your paragraphs in an essay. Basically what we mean by a basic essay is that it has three main parts. I think in any writing that's applicable, or that's true, that we have introduction, body, and conclusion. So you'll follow the format. Following this format will help you write and organize an essay. And looking at introductory paragraphs. This is an introductory paragraph for an essay. Read it. You may pause your video and read and do the following, the follow-up activities. Okay, and the question is, what is the title of the essay? What should be the title of the essay? The oldest person in our family, lucky people, a special family member. Take your time and answer this question. As you can see here, everyone, they're all special. Is the writer going to write about all of them? No, I don't think so. They're all special, but it says, in the end, but in other words, in this case, I decided to write about the oldest member of our family, my grandfather. So she's going to write about only her grandfather, who is the oldest, but all of them are special. So that's why a special member of family is not the best title for it, because everyone is special. So the only person she chose to talk about or write about is the oldest person in her family. Not everyone who are special. Or as in, if it says, because it says a special member of a family, you might think that's possible, but no. It is not because he's special that she is writing about it. It's just the oldest person in her family, and that's why the answer is the oldest person in her family. Select the correct statements about introductory. Based on this, or your prior understanding as well, an introductory paragraph is in the middle of an essay. Is it? I don't think so. You may pause and do the answers and check. But we shall go through the answers now together. Is in the middle of the essay? No. Is at the start of the essay? Yes. Tells the reader what you write about in the essay? Yes. In this case, you say family. It tells about the reader what you write about. It says, I decided to tell you about the oldest member of my family. This is what you're basically telling the reader what you write about. This is an example for it.
Yeah, tells the reader how you'll organize your ideas. Yes, because it says first, as you can see here, first I will tell you about his life in the past. So it starts, this is how it will be organized. Then about my life with him now. So this is, it starts from the past and goes to the present. So this is again an indication that the person, this is how the person organizes the essay. And gives examples to support your ideas? No. Explains and gives small details? Yeah, small details such as he is, everyone is special. It was, he, you might add something here saying he is very, very thoughtful, and maybe a small detail is possible in an introductory paragraph. Should make the reader interested to read in reading the essay. Yeah, that's what introductory paragraphs are there for. That's what they should tell the reader everything they need to know. Not everything. This is not the role of introductory paragraph. So these are the features of introductory paragraph. Introductory paragraphs, more, you have some introductory paragraphs here, and you'll have to choose the best introductory paragraphs, and I will also ask you to justify why the paragraphs the paragraph you choose is the best. So pause, read, and we can discuss. So the best paragraph is C. Our house is quite large and I like most rooms in it. However, my favorite room is my bedroom. In this essay, I'd like to tell you why. The reasons. What's the problem with the other paragraphs? Did you think about what the problems are for the other 3 paragraphs? You may try and match 1 to 3 with A, B, D. Okay, now let's discuss the reasons. So the first one, the sentence are not well organized. B. Our house is quite large and I like most rooms in it. In this essay, I'd like to tell you why. My favorite room is my bedroom. I'd like to tell you why. And then my favorite room is, which sentence should come first? I'd like to tell you why, or my favorite room is my bedroom. So in this essay, look at C, and it makes a perfect sense to put it in the order where it's put in C. So the order is not right. So my favorite room is my bedroom. In this essay, I would like to tell you why. Okay, tell me. Then the next paragraph follows. That should be how it is organized. It doesn't tell the reader what the essay is about. That is A. I really like it. It's my favorite. It's better than all the rooms. Doesn't say anything about what the essay is. So doesn't tell much. It can be, a paragraph can be 1 sentence, no problem, but this doesn't say as an introductory paragraph, that this doesn't say anything about the what the essay is all about. And introductory paragraphs should have that feature. It gives details, examples, not general information. So that's D. My bedroom has 2 large windows, which is detail and examples. It's painted blue, and I have a red and blue rug on the floor. All these are details and examples, and they're not general, they are specific. But in the introductory paragraphs, we talk about general things. Okay. More on introductory paragraphs and answer the three questions. The first question is choose the best introductory paragraph from A, B, C to go with the next paragraph. So for this to go, the next paragraph is the holiday started well, the weather was beautiful, the views from the hotel were fantastic, there was so much to do, tennis in the morning, walks after lunch, dinner on the terrace. We thought nothing could go wrong. It was only after a couple of days that we began to notice the problem. Now, A, B, or C should be the introductory paragraphs, and why? Pause, do the task, and now we can look at the answers. So the best introductory paragraph is B, because it focuses on the problems and it fits to the follow-up body paragraph. I have been on several holidays which weren't very good. However, my last holiday was the worst holiday I have ever had. The worst holiday. You might say, oh, it's talking about the beauty, it's talking about the walk, tennis and everything, all the good things. Yes, but this is how it began. We know that the next paragraph will tell us more about how bad it got, how bad the holiday got to. So because it begins here, the problem begins already. So it says we thought nothing could go wrong. It was only after a couple of days that we began to notice the problem. So there comes the problems, and the next paragraph obviously will be about the problems, and that's what makes it maybe the worst. Whereas in these two paragraphs, some people think this is general. Other people think holidays are waste of time or something like that. And the promise is he'll write about the pros and cons. Here it's not about pros and cons. It's not about advantages and disadvantages. It's about what went wrong and what is the worst holiday of a person. He's talking about his own experience, not in general, like in A. And C, going on holiday is a great way to spend time with family. I love going, So it's all positive, nothing bad, all, about the good things of going on holiday with your family. All until the end. So I'll tell you why it's good. I mean, because of the problem, you'll not have a good experience, obviously. So that's the answer is B. Why do the other two paragraphs? We just talked about them, yeah, as discussed. And the title should be the worst holiday, don't you think so? My worst holiday. Yeah, the person is trying to tell us about his worst or her worst holiday. So my worst holiday could be the best fit. And moving on to body paragraphs. We've kind of highlighted body paragraphs in the previous slide, exercise 1.5, when we tried to match the best introductory paragraph with the given follow-up, the given body paragraph. So now go back to the previous slide. You may rewind this video and look at the introductory paragraphs given. So we matched introductory paragraph B with the body paragraph earlier, yeah? So choose either A or C, or for both. How about writing a body paragraph? So one or two body paragraphs, depending on the context. So Write the title in the next paragraph. What should the title be for A and B and C? And write your body paragraph here, on your notebooks. Take your time, pause here and do it. This is for your own practice before asking you to write an essay. Just practice each bit. Okay, now let's move on. So let's make some deductions on how body paragraphs can be used. So the second and third paragraphs in an essay are called body paragraphs. Choose the things you do in a body paragraph. It's introduce the essay. Does it do that? No, I don't think so. Give examples? Definitely, yeah. Give more details? Yeah. Tell the story? Yeah. Give new information? Yeah. Explain your ideas? Yeah. Give a conclusion? No. Support your opinion? Yes. Repeat the main idea? Not really repeat the main idea. Describe things? Yes. So these are the important aspects of body paragraph. And body paragraphs, again, write the sentences in the correct order to make a good paragraph. You've got these sentences 1 to 5. They are not in the correct order. So when we write, paragraphs in general, we have to think about the order of the sentences. Otherwise, it affects the clarity and it affects the entire essay. So let's work on the order of the sentences within a paragraph. So in this case, we have a body paragraph here, and we need to put the body paragraph in a logical order. Pause and do it, and I'll show you the answers in a minute. The answer. All right. Simon's early life was very interesting. When he was very young, he lived in several different countries because his father traveled for business. For example, at the age of 2, the family moved to Hong Kong. Later, when he was a teenager, his family decided to stay in Australia. This is where he stayed and then went to university. Next, perfect, very clear. But if you use the order as it is, it's hard to understand. It makes the life difficult for the reader. More on body paragraphs. Which of the two introductory paragraphs below does the paragraph in the previous slide match about Simon? So, I really like traveling. Is it about I? I have several friends. My best friend. Is it about Simon? So choose which one is the best introductory paragraph for the previous body paragraph. You may rewind and read the Simon's body paragraph again and match it with the best introductory paragraph from the two here. Pause, rewind, check. In a minute, I'll show you the answer and we can talk about it. Okay, so introductory paragraph 2 is because it talks about the friend. It's not about the writer, I. And I have several good friends, but my best friend is Simon. We have known each other for 4 years and we live in the same street. This wasn't always the case, which means because we know that in the follow-up body paragraph, the writer mentions all the places Simon has traveled to, and as a result, they didn't live in the same area because Simon's parents basically traveled a lot. Whereas introductory paragraph 1, it says, I really like traveling. It's not about you. In the second paragraph, in the body paragraph, which we saw earlier, we know that this is about Simon, not about the writer. I really like traveling. I have been to Hong Kong. Now I think I'll go there with my friend when I finish university. Completely different idea here. And body paragraph again. Here is the introduction and topic sentence for another essay with the title My Favorite Sport. Choose the next 4 sentences to complete the body paragraph. Number them in order. Now, you've got the introductory paragraph, the next 4 sentences to complete the body paragraph. Choose from A to F and put them in their correct order. Pause, do it, and I'll show you the answers. There you go, the answers. So the first one can be basketball is a team game with 5 players on each side, because it's promised. The writer promises to tell us about his favorite sport, which is basketball, and the next one can be basketball is a team game with 5 players on each side. Yeah. Second one, the aim of the game. Yeah. Third one, you can also throw the ball, because here it says you can shoot the ball and then also throw the ball. And last one, however, you cannot walk. You can do this, you can do that, but you cannot walk. So this is a good order in a paragraph to follow. And ideas, you cannot talk about football. It doesn't have any connection to the introductory paragraph. Nothing new should be put in, in your body paragraph, or in, if you say you're going to write about basketball, then you should stick to it. Or you can create another paragraph separately for another thing if it suits. The best time for running, it's not about running. And now select the information that you think will be in the next body paragraph of the previous paragraph about basketball. What the person feels about basketball? Yeah. Where the writer plays basketball? No problem. Information about football? No, not about football. And often how often the writer plays basketball? Why not? How to make the basketball itself? The making of the no. How many people play sports in the world? No, it's not about sports specific. How often the writer watches sport? No. So these are the 3 things that can be in the next body paragraphs. Now, moving on to the last part of an essay, which is a concluding paragraph. You can see this text, read the paragraph, and this is a concluding paragraph in an essay. My favorite sport, which you've looked at. I don't know you haven't, but this is the concluding paragraph, basically. And can we say it's in the middle? No, in the end of an essay. What do you think? You may pause, read everything, and do this with me. It's in the end? Yes, it's in the end. Remind the reader what you wrote about? Yeah. Tells the reader what you'll organize, not you'll organize, what you have organized. Gives new information? No. Gives a summary? Yes. Repeats the main points? Yes. Often has an interesting sentence to finish? You should try too. Yeah, that's what it says. You should try too. This is an interesting ending, isn't it? So we often do that in a concluding paragraph. Let's now differentiate concluding paragraphs with that of introductory paragraphs. So which 3 paragraphs in here are introductory, and which of these are concluding from 1 to 3 and A to C? And we can then match the concluding paragraphs to the introductory paragraphs. pause and do it, and in a minute we'll start looking at the answers. Okay, so introductory 1, A and C. So the reason they're introductory, we have several reasons, but the easy clues you can see are at the end of the sentence, at the end of the paragraph in number 1, it says, I will start by exploring the advantages, which means you will expect something to come after this paragraph, and it lays out what it will discuss in the body paragraphs. And that's the same with A and C. In C, you can see in this essay, I will give reasons for my opinion. So you will expect reasons in the body paragraphs here, same in A. And concluding paragraphs are 2, 3, and B. And the first clue you've got there is the signposts. So in conclusion, so to sum up, this we normally use in to end a paragraph, an essay, or to end an idea. So, or to summarize an idea. So you could, and also looking at 2 and B, their last sentences. In the last sentences, they have these interesting statements to which we said are characters of introductory paragraph. Is a character of concluding paragraph. It's a feature of concluding paragraph, so to say. So it should be in the future too. Or you can also see number 3. Try it for yourself, and just be careful what you choose. Just be careful what you choose. And these are interesting statements we normally put at the end of a concluding paragraph. You can also look at the tense, the use of the tense. It's more about what will happen and what the writer is going to write about. Is in the future form in some of the example sentences there in introductory paragraphs, whereas in concluding paragraphs you may use several. You may even use the present perfect, but not in this case, to say that we have and I have discussed these points. Whereas in the introductory paragraphs, you might say, I will discuss these points. Will becomes have discussed. Will discuss. Will have discussed. Or it's a repeat of the introductory paragraph somehow in a different way, in a concluding way. And when matching them, but the first IP number 1 goes with which is the introductory, and it goes with B. Both of them talk about eating out in restaurants, so they're talking about the same idea. This tells us that the introductory paragraph and then the concluding paragraph should not talk about 2 different things. They should talk about one thing. You introduce, explain in the body paragraph, and then review, kind of summarize in the concluding paragraph, or so make sure the ideas are the same. So that's again for number 2. Eating together is the focus, so the same thing in both introductory and concluding. And number 3 is about the choice of his restaurant in particular. It's not about in general eating together or eating out in restaurants, but this is about his favorite restaurant in both cases, and explains why in the body paragraphs, we assume. Okay, so what we learned from this activity is that the introductory and concluding paragraphs should talk about the same idea. It shouldn't be one talking about eating out in restaurants and the other talking about eating out, in only eating out, or the other talking about favorite restaurant. So it should just be the same idea but phrased in different ways, and maybe the purpose is different. One is to introduce, the other is to conclude, to give a summary. Now, like we said earlier, an essay should have a beginning, a middle, and an end. And which paragraphs are part of essay A and which paragraphs are part of essay B? First, you need to distinguish the two paragraphs, the two essays. There are two essays in this 1 to 8 paragraphs. In these 8 paragraphs, you need to first identify the two paragraphs, the two essays, and once identified, then you can sequence the two paragraphs. Take your time and do it, and we'll look at the answers in a second. Okay, now there you go. These are the two paragraphs, the two essays, and the titles of the two paragraphs, the two essays. One talks about the family car, so you can title it as Our Family Car, and the other talks about the pros and cons of cars in general, and they are put in this order because you can look at, for example, the pros and cons. We normally write when we normally write about pros and cons, kind of argumentative essays, we begin with advantages, then move on to disadvantages. So that's why you have the advantages here. That's why you have the advantages before the disadvantages. So you have major advantages, disadvantages. This is the order when it is argumentative. So when you have advantages, first write about the advantages. Disadvantages always follow the advantages. And obviously, in my opinion, means, we normally express our opinion in the last paragraph in opinion essay. And so making conclusion here, also making a summary, whereas here it promises what it will write about. And in this case, cars are very important, giving some general outlook, and I would like to tell you why, promising the reader what you're going to cover in the essay. And let's start, it says. So this is obviously the first body paragraph, and yeah, and this is then the next one, and it talks about, so this is something that you should always remember: one paragraph, one idea. So everything in this paragraph talks about one idea, and everything in this paragraph talks about one idea, and there is a topic sentence in each paragraph. Let's start with a description. So which means everything in this paragraph is a description of the car. And in this case, special for all of us, it says, it means everything in this paragraph. It talks about how and why special this car is. And the conclusion, very important, says what makes it important in general is, for example, our car helps us helps our family a lot and gives us special times together when we travel in a group. So this is very important. Yeah. So key things to consider in essay writing: one, making sure you have a beginning, middle, and end. and making sure that in the beginning, which is the introductory paragraph, you should that you include only general information, specific information to in this and specific information in the body paragraph, and concluding information summary and closing information in the concluding paragraph, and that each paragraph should talk about one idea, and one paragraph should logically link to the other. And we should be able to know, we have to also think about the word order within each paragraph. It should be logical. Not only the word order, the paragraph order should be logical as well. So one should follow the other. And all these things contribute to the clarity of our essay and readability as well. Hope this is clear. And this is then your production task. You are now, based on what you have learned in this writing section, expected to write an essay. Describe your favorite thing that you own. So this is a kind of a descriptive writing. So you describe the thing, the favorite thing. It cannot be people. You don't own people. So any object you own, it can be a mobile phone, your TV in your house, or you don't own it maybe, but anything you have or you own. It can be a shirt, it can be a pen, it can be a book that you own, and you write a descriptive essay here. You do try to include everything we said should be included in an introductory paragraph, and everything that needs to be included in body paragraphs and concluding paragraphs, and make sure that you check spelling at the end. So once you've written it, so edit it again with spelling check, punctuation, capital letters, full stops, commas, aspects covered in introductory paragraphs, aspects covered in body paragraphs, aspects covered in concluding paragraphs. And you may also show it to your teachers or friend or classmates or family members or whoever you think could give you useful feedback on your writing, and this will help you improve your writing on a regular basis. Good. And once you've done that, then you can rewrite your essay, and the more rewrite, the more chance you have to write the same thing again, the better it gets. So always give yourself a second or third or more chances to rewrite the same text. So do this for this task as well. Right, end of unit so self-evaluation here. So here are the goals we set at the beginning of this unit. You can evaluate yourselves against these checklists. Are you able to talk about topics related to medicine? If yes, tick on the yes column. Read for general and specific information in the context of medicine. Are you able to listen for general and specific information in the context of medicine? Are you able to use third conditionals? Are you able to make sentences containing defining clause or non-defining relative clause? Are you able to write a descriptive essay with introductory body and concluding paragraphs? You may evaluate yourselves and give, if, for example, you say no to any of this, then you need to go further read and practice. Good. This is what we've got for this unit. Unit 3, grade 11. Next will be Unit 4, grade 11. Thank you.